On a late afternoon, Officer Grayson spotted Jallen King walking alone on the sidewalk, just another black teenager in a neighborhood predominantly inhabited by white residents, and therefore, by default, suspicious in the officer's eyes. He pulled over, and what followed was routine harassment. But it was Grayson's mocking laughter that echoed loudest. When Jallen mentioned that his godfather was Sylvester Stallone, what the officer didn't know was that his own career was about to crumble. In the late afternoon light of Fairfield, Ohio, a place where front lawns were obsessively trimmed and neighbors kept quiet track of each other's routines, a 16-year-old boy named Jallen King walked the sidewalk alone, a grocery bag in one hand, earbuds pumping soft instrumentals into his ears. Fairfield wasn't the kind of town that welcomed disruptions, and for some, Jallen's very presence was a disruption in itself. He had learned early on how to move quietly through the world. Don't draw attention, don't run, and never speak unless spoken to. Being the only black teen living at Haven Hill, a group home tucked behind the Methodist Church, had taught him the importance of stillness, not because he was guilty of anything, but because people assumed he was. As he passed the corner of Willow and Grant, the curtains at Mrs. Beckley's house twitched, just like they always did. Her garden, all marigolds and symmetry, was spotless, and she watched over it like a hawk. Jallen didn't look toward her window. He didn't have to. He could feel her stare in his spine. Just 2 blocks left, and he could breathe again. Then came the slow, unmistakable sound of tires rolling too close. A Fairfield police cruiser had pulled up alongside him, crawling at walking speed. He felt it before he saw it, that quiet dread rising like a tide inside his chest. The window buzzed down. "You there?" a voice called, deep and clipped. "Stop for a second." Jallen removed his left earbud and turned, standing still, keeping his hands at his sides just like he'd been taught. The officer inside was a new face in town, early 30s, military posture, buzz cut, that revealed a scar near his temple. His nameplate read Grayson. He studied Jallen for a long beat. "Mind telling me what you're doing in this neighborhood?" "I live at the Haven Hill group home," Jallen answered calmly. "Just went to Circle K for snacks. Heading back now." "Got ID?" the officer asked. "Only my school ID," Jallen replied. "I'm 16. Don't have a license yet." As he started to reach for his backpack, the officer's tone sharpened. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Jallen froze, lifting both palms in the open air. "My school ID is in my bag," he said softly. Grayson stepped out of the cruiser, walking around to Jallen's side. His boots clicked against the concrete in deliberate, slow steps. "Then open it, slowly." A second cruiser turned the corner and parked nearby, its presence escalating the tension like background music in a suspense film. Jallen unzipped his backpack carefully, pulling out a weathered school ID. Grayson took it, squinting at the laminated plastic, then looked back at Jallen with a smirk. "You always dress like that?" he asked. Jallen, wearing a clean gray hoodie and dark jeans, shrugged slightly. "Just regular clothes, sir." Grayson's eyes narrowed, his gaze sweeping the length of Jallen's body, as if he were scanning for contraband, with nothing more than suspicion and resentment. "What's in the bag?" "Books, my sneakers, Gatorade, some chips," Jallen answered, already kneeling to unzip the rest of the bag. Inside were a calculus book, a battered composition notebook, and a pair of well-used basketball shoes. Grayson rummaged through the contents anyway, brushing aside items with gloved fingers, as if expecting something dangerous to leap out. Where exactly do you live again? Haven Hill Group Home, 402 Jefferson. Parents? No, sir. Anyone else responsible for you? Grayson asked, his voice flattening. Jallen hesitated. Then, with a quiet firmness, he said, I have a godfather. Oh, yeah? Who's that? Jallen looked Grayson in the eyes. Sylvester Stallone. For a second, Grayson just stared. Then came the laughter, not a chuckle, a full-throated, street-carrying burst of disbelief. You're telling me Rocky Balboa is your godfather? He said loud enough for the neighbors to hear. What is this, some kind of joke? Jallen didn't answer. He didn't flinch either, just stood there, motionless, the shopping bag still clutched in one hand. Let me guess, Grayson continued, smirking as another officer stepped out of the backup vehicle. Denzel Washington is your uncle? Oprah's your grandma? Come on, kid. The other officer, older and clearly uncomfortable, looked around and said under his breath, Maybe let it go, Brad. But Grayson wasn't done. He tossed the ID back like it wasn't worth the plastic it was printed on. Move along, Hollywood. Try not to tell fairy tales next time someone asks a simple question. Jallen repacked his bag, slid his backpack over his shoulder, and turned away. He didn't put his earbud back in. He didn't walk fast. He walked the way his godfather once told him in a letter, with dignity, even when no one's looking, especially then. At the edge of the block, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Maya Thompson, a white girl from his junior year English class. They weren't close, barely even acquaintances. The text said, I saw what happened. I recorded it. You should have it. Jallen stared at the message. His thumbs hovered. He typed, Okay. That was all he could manage. That night, in the quiet corner room of Haven Hill, Jallen sat on his bed beside a shoebox where he kept the letters. There were 6 of them, all handwritten, each signed SS. The first one came 2 years ago, after Stallone had visited Haven Hill during a winter charity drive. Most celebrities shook hands, took pictures, maybe gave a speech. But Stallone had noticed Jallen immediately, not for his voice or charm, he didn't speak much, but for the way he watched everything, alert, as if trying to memorize the world. Stallone sat beside him, asked his name, asked about his grades. Jallen had told him the truth. He liked quiet, he liked math, and he didn't like being watched. Stallone had laughed gently and said, I get that. They stayed in touch. A letter every few months, a surprise video message on his birthday. Jallen never talked about it much. People didn't believe it anyway. That night, he pulled out one of the letters. The edges were soft from being handled too many times. He read the last lines under the glow of his bedside lamp. You don't have to punch to be a fighter. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay standing when the world expects you to fall. You already got that, and I see you, kid. Jallen folded the letter back with care. Outside, Fairfield was quiet again. Too quiet. But across the country, in a home lined with film posters and family portraits, Sylvester Stallone sat watching a short video on his phone. The grainy clip of a young black boy standing alone while a cop laughed in his face. His jaw tightened. His hand, still thick with muscle at 77, curled slowly into a fist resting on the table. He didn't say anything. He just stood, pulled out a small black duffel bag, and began to pack. He had always told Jallen that if he ever needed him, he'd be there. And now, the kid didn't even have to call, because some promises don't need reminders. The next morning, Fairfield felt just like any other morning, calm, almost boring. Jallen woke early, as he always did. The group home had its rhythms: breakfast at 7, chores until 8, school by 9. He stretched, pulled on his uniform, and tied his shoes. But today, something was different. He had the same routine, but his heart felt like it had a new weight. It was the cop, the officer from yesterday. It wasn't just the humiliation that stayed with him, it was the knowing. The knowing that if he were anyone else, this wouldn't have happened. If he were white, Grayson wouldn't have even looked at him twice. But there was nothing he could do about that. It was just how things were. As he grabbed his backpack, he noticed the envelope on his nightstand again. Stallone's letter. He picked it up again, reading the same lines, like some sort of secret strength that no one else could see, but that he needed today more than ever. "You don't have to punch to be a fighter," the letter read. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay standing when the world expects you to fall." He folded it carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. He was going to need it today. At school, the usual buzz of students filled the halls, but there was a strange undercurrent to it, a tension in the air. Whispers about Jallen's encounter with the officer had spread like wildfire. The phone video Maya had taken was everywhere, circulating on social media. Some students had come to his defense. Others had joined the chorus of mockery, mimicking the cop's voice, laughing. "Yeah, right. Stallone's your godfather," they said, shoving Jallen as he passed by. He kept his head down, just like Stallone had taught him. "Stay calm. Don't react. Your silence is your power." But today, it felt harder to maintain the calm. When he sat in class, he could feel the eyes on him. When the bell rang for lunch, Maya waited for him at the door, her face serious. "Hey, I saw you at your locker this morning," she said, stepping beside him as they walked toward the cafeteria. "I just want you to know that I'm still with you. I mean, it's messed up what happened yesterday, and I'm glad you didn't let him get to you. But people are talking." "I know," Jallen replied, his voice quiet but steady. "It's fine. I'm fine." Maya seemed to hesitate, her brow furrowed. "Are you sure? I mean, your godfather, Stallone? That's huge. Why wouldn't he be proud of you for standing up?" "He is," Jallen said, his tone cool, but with a hint of something deeper, something he didn't quite know how to express. "He's proud of me for being me." He shifted the weight of his backpack, suddenly feeling the pressure of it like 100 pounds. "But some people aren't going to believe that. They think I'm just making it up. That's their problem." Maya didn't push further. She just nodded. "If you need anything, you can talk to me." They walked in silence into the crowded cafeteria, where Jallen spotted his usual seat. But as he approached, he noticed something different. A group of boys from the basketball team, led by Tyler Wilson, were at his table. Tyler, a lanky guy with too much confidence, was grinning like a Cheshire cat. "Hey, King," he said loudly enough for a few nearby tables to hear. "Heard you're claiming Stallone's your godfather. What's next? Dwayne Johnson your uncle?" The other boys laughed, nudging each other and making exaggerated gestures like they were throwing punches. "Don't listen to them," Maya whispered, her voice just above a hiss. But Jallen stood still. He didn't flinch, didn't look away, just let the words wash over him. Tyler pushed forward, his smile turning into something darker. "I know you're just looking for attention, but guess what? Nobody cares. Nobody believes you. You're just a charity case." The words stung, but Jallen said nothing. He picked up his tray, set it on the table, and sat down. The tension in the air was thick, but he could feel the eyes on him, and he wasn't going to let them see him crumble. He wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Maya sat down across from him, her eyes darting to Tyler and his friends, then back to Jallen. "Don't let them get to you," she said firmly. "They don't get it." Tyler didn't stop. He leaned in close, his voice loud, meant to humiliate. "Bet your dad works at Burger King, huh? Stallone's not coming to save you." But Jallen stayed quiet. He looked at Maya. He knew she was trying to help, but he didn't need anyone's pity. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, and everyone began to rise. Tyler and his friends lingered for a moment, still chuckling as they walked away. Maya shot Jallen an apologetic look. "I'm sorry. I know it's hard." Jallen stood up, shaking his head slightly. "It's fine. Just don't let it spread anymore. Don't give them any more attention than they deserve." He walked out of the cafeteria alone, the sound of Maya calling his name behind him. As he passed the hallways, he couldn't help but feel the weight of every pair of eyes that followed him. They were all watching, all waiting for him to snap, for him to do something wrong. But he wasn't going to give them that. Not today. Not ever. That afternoon, as Jallen walked the familiar path back to the group home, he couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming. The world had a way of knocking people like him down, but Stallone's words echoed in his mind. "Stand tall. Don't let them see you fall." As he reached the steps of Haven Hill, he paused, looking out at the quiet street. He knew that this wasn't just about some dumb video, some officer's jealousy. This was about something deeper, about proving his worth in a world that was designed to make him invisible. That night, as the group home settled into its routine of half-silence and the hum of late-night TV in the common room, Jallen sat alone in his room, staring out of the window. He had to get away from here. He had to leave Fairfield, leave this town where everyone looked at him like a problem, a thing to be fixed. He had to make it to a place where people didn't judge him by his skin or his past. He thought about Stallone, about what it meant to have someone believe in him. It wasn't just the charity of a wealthy man who wanted to feel good about himself. It was the belief in his potential, his strength. And Jallen wasn't going to waste that. Not anymore. In Los Angeles, on the other side of the country, Sylvester Stallone sat on the patio of his home, watching the sunset. He wasn't just a Hollywood icon. He was a man who understood hardship, who had built his life not from glamour, but from fighting against the odds. He had met Jallen at his lowest, and in the boy's quiet dignity, he had seen something raw, something he couldn't ignore. He thought about the video, about the injustice, and about how it seemed the world had a way of crushing the spirits of those it feared the most. And he made a decision. He was going to do more than write letters. He wasn't going to stand by while someone he cared about was dragged through the mud. Stallone was coming. This time, he wasn't just sending a message, he was showing up. 3 days later, Fairfield woke to gray skies and the scent of distant rain. The town moved at its usual sleepy pace, but under the surface, there was an unease, something invisible, something unspoken. Officer Grayson, still stewing in the embarrassment of public ridicule, had watched the video clip dozens of times. It played in his mind like a broken loop. The boy's face, calm and proud, the girl filming, the second officer looking away, and his own laughter, the mockery that had now become a point of public shame. He had expected praise, not backlash. He thought he was asserting control. Instead, the clip had sparked outrage on community forums. Stallone's name had been trending on local Facebook pages, and Grayson was now the subject of an internal review. But he couldn't let it go. The boy had gotten under his skin, the same way certain things always had. People who didn't know their place, people who challenged his authority with quiet confidence. Jallen King was one of them, and Grayson wasn't going to let him walk away like some kind of hero. That afternoon, Jallen was walking home from school when it happened. A black SUV rolled up slowly behind him, its windows tinted, its presence quiet but imposing. Before he could react, the rear door swung open and two plainclothes men stepped out, blocking his path. One of them showed a fake badge. "We need to talk to you. Come with us." Jallen froze. "What is this about?" he asked, his voice steady but low. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, kid." One of the men grabbed his arm. Jallen tried to pull away, but the grip tightened. A sharp sting hit the back of his neck, and everything went dark. When he woke, his wrists were zip-tied, and he was seated in a metal chair in what looked like an abandoned garage outside town. The concrete floor was stained, the windows high and dust-covered. There was a small table with a camera on a tripod facing him. In the shadows, Officer Grayson stood with his arms folded, pacing like a man unraveling. "Took you long enough to wake up," he muttered. "I needed a quiet place, away from noise, away from that school, away from your little friends." Jallen blinked, his mouth dry. "What do you want from me?" Grayson's eyes narrowed. "I want the truth. Who is Stallone to you, really? Who are you working for? What's the game here?" "There's no game," Jallen said, his voice quiet. "He's my godfather. That's it. He believes in me. That's all there is." Grayson slammed a hand against the table, making the camera wobble. "That's not all there is. You think I'm stupid? You think you can play this little sympathy card? Get people crying for you? Turn me into the bad guy? No, no. This ends now." He stepped closer, the tension in the air sharp as glass. "You've made me look like a fool. You've made this whole department look like fools. But when they see this video, when they see what I find, it'll be you they question." Jallen didn't blink. "You kidnapped me. What are you going to do? Film a confession that's not real? Is that your idea of justice?" Grayson grabbed him by the collar, pulled his face close. "You think you're clever? You think that man is going to come riding in like some Hollywood superhero? This isn't a movie, kid. This is real life. And in real life, people like you get buried." Jallen's voice didn't shake. "Then bury me. But you'll never be more than what you are right now. A scared man blaming a kid for the way his life turned out." Grayson stepped back, his face twisted with rage and something deeper, shame. But before he could speak again, a voice echoed from outside. "Step away from the boy, Bradley." The garage door creaked, and there in the entrance stood Sylvester Stallone, in a leather jacket, worn jeans, and steel in his eyes. No cameras, no bodyguards, just presence, the kind that didn't have to announce itself. Grayson's jaw dropped. "You've got to be kidding me," he said. "You actually came." Stallone stepped forward slowly, the years on his face etched like history, his hands relaxed but certain. "He's my godson. You think I wouldn't?" Grayson pulled his weapon, but it trembled. "Don't come closer." Stallone stopped just feet away, calm as still water. "You know what's happening here, Bradley. You've lost control. That badge they gave you, it was meant to protect people, not hurt kids. Grayson's hands shook harder. He lied to me. He made me look like a joke. This is all his fault. No, Stallone said quietly. This is your fault. You looked at a kid and saw a threat because of his skin, his silence, his dignity. And now you're here, kidnapping a teenager in an abandoned warehouse, hoping someone will see you as the victim. But no one's going to see it that way. Not today. Jallen stared, silent, stunned. Grayson didn't lower the gun, but he didn't fire either. Sirens howled in the distance. Maya had shared Jallen's last location with the authorities when he didn't show up to practice. And Stallone had made sure someone followed that digital trail all the way here. You're done, Stallone said. Put the gun down. Walk away with what little you have left. Grayson hesitated. The seconds stretched long and thin. Then, slowly, he set the gun on the table. Officers burst through moments later, swarming the room. Grayson was arrested on the spot. As they pulled him away in cuffs, he kept shouting, "He's lying! They're all lying!" But nobody listened. Stallone crossed the room, knelt down beside Jallen, and with calm, steady fingers, cut the plastic restraints from his wrists. "You okay?" he asked. Jallen looked into his eyes, full of gratitude, disbelief, and quiet strength. "I am now." The two of them walked out together, past the chaos and the flashing lights, past the noise and the disbelief, and Fairfield watched. In the days that followed, the town changed. Grayson was indicted. The department issued a public apology. The video of Stallone rescuing Jallen went viral, not because of celebrity, but because of what it represented. A man who didn't just say he believed in someone, but showed up when it counted most. Maya's video, the one from school, became a turning point in the local conversation about race, justice, and what real mentorship looked like. Jallen returned to school the following week. This time, when he walked through the halls, people moved out of the way with respect, not fear. Tyler Wilson and his crew never spoke a word to him again. On a crisp Saturday morning, Jallen stood outside Haven Hill with Stallone by his side. The older man placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, eyes scanning the quiet street. "Still want to leave this place someday?" Stallone asked. Jallen nodded. "Yeah, but not because I'm running away. Because I've got somewhere to go now." "That's what I like to hear," Stallone said, his voice warm. "Just remember, wherever you go, you stand your ground. Because who you are is something the world needs more of." Jallen looked up at the man who had once been just a name on a screen, now the quiet force behind his courage. "Thank you," he said. Stallone smiled. "No thanks needed. Just keep going. That's all the thanks I'll ever want." And with that, they stood in silence. Two fighters, one young and one weathered, both walking forward in a world that had tried to write them off, but never could.